Chapter 1 Prologue I. In a certain dimension, asterisk. So, you're telling me that if I protect a world for 100 years, I'll get a second chance to live? Aiden crossed his arms in front of the cosmic entity before him. Its ethereal body was transparent, but it still retained the features of his previous life. His gaze reflected a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. He had died just hours ago, murdered by a deranged woman who blamed him for her lover's death. Of course, it wasn't his fault. There was no evidence incriminating him. But that didn't stop that crazy woman from taking his life. Kaiba Akihiko, that damn bastard. He disappeared without a word. And on the very day we were going to celebrate SAO's launch, he vanishes, he thought, with contained anger. In his previous life, Aiden had been friends with Kaiba, the genius behind the technology that revolutionized virtual reality, the Nerve Gear. Together, along with other technological prodigies, they had created the first true full immersion system. Aiden had been second in command on that project, which made him an easy target when Kaiba did the unthinkable, trapping 10,000 players in a death game. The guilt followed him, even though he wasn't responsible for any of it. However, the world didn't see it that way. As players began dying in the real world too, the blame fell on him, and he was sentenced to prison. But before he got there, a crazy woman stabbed him to death during his transfer. Seriously? Damn useless cops. They didn't even react in time. I ended up covered in stab wounds. He recalled with frustration. Now, in this strange limbo, Aiden stared at the cosmic entity, awaiting an answer to his question. If he truly had a second chance at life, he would take it without hesitation. No one wants to die young, especially not at just 20 years old. His desire to live burned fiercely, and he waited anxiously for the cosmic being's verdict. Yes, as I said, I'll make you an offer. If you can protect a world from invaders seeking to destroy its civilization for 100 years, I'll grant you a second life. The cosmic entity spoke in a deep, resonant voice as its form emitted a blinding glow. Aiden, by pure reflex, covered his eyes, though it was a futile gesture since he no longer had eyes that could be hurt. An instant later, the glow subsided, and the entity took on a humanoid figure. I believe this form is more comfortable for interacting with humans, said the entity, now in a more approachable tone. Yes, Aiden murmured, nodding. Though he didn't show it, his insides were a whirlwind of nerves. How could they not be? Just hours ago, he had died, and now he was face to face with a being that only existed in the novels he read in his spare time. Everything that was happening seemed straight out of a fantasy. But he knew, with every fiber of his being, that this wasn't a dream. May I ask something? Aiden said, his voice full of caution. Of course, the entity replied with unshakable calm. How am I supposed to protect a world? I don't know if you noticed, but in my previous life, I was just a normal human. Maybe I had a slightly faster brain than average, but that's about it, Aiden admitted, feeling a bit ridiculous as he said it. You don't have to worry about that, the entity responded, its tone almost comforting. I'll give you what you need to become stronger over time. Eventually, you'll be able to protect that world on your own. If you manage to fulfill the 100 years defending that world, you'll get to keep that power and do whatever you wish. Of course, that's if you accept my offer. Aiden nodded slowly, beginning to process what he was hearing. It all made sense, at least within the strange context he was in. It was like living inside a light novel, only much more real and unsettling. And so, Aiden Avalon, do you accept? The entity asked with a voice that resonated through the void. Of course, Aiden responded without hesitation. At least I have a second chance. If I complete the deal, I get a new life. If I don't accept, I'll probably just disappear, right? The idea of disappearing chilled him to the bone, far more than the memory of the stabbings that had brought him here. That woman who killed him, he hoped she would be caught. At the very least, someone should pay for his death. Yes, the entity confirmed with serene frankness. If you don't accept, I can only send you to the natural cycle of reincarnation. The God in charge will cleanse your soul, and you will lose everything that makes you you. In other words, you will cease to exist. So, accepting my offer is a wise decision. Although you'll have to work hard for those 100 years, believe me, it will be worth it. Aiden smirked sarcastically. Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world, right? But I won't complain. A new life with superpowers and all doesn't sound bad at all. Wait a second. I won't die of old age, right? Aiden asked, a mix of curiosity and concern in his voice. You don't need to worry about such minor details, the entity replied with a hint of amusement. I will grant you the power to live forever. It's the least I can offer you for protecting that world for 100 years. Additionally, I'll grant you a few powers, 3 in total, to ensure you don't die. Over time, you'll develop more abilities on your own, though in his ethereal form. Aiden twisted his lips in surprise. The idea of not aging was tempting, impossible to reject. I see. Thank you, sir? Ma'am? Aiden asked, slightly confused. He wasn't sure if this entity had a gender, but courtesy was the least he could offer in this strange moment. The entity let out a vibrant laugh. Ha! Beings like me have no gender, but you may call me Yog-Sothoth. Cough, cough. Aiden began coughing, even though he had no physical body. The name sent chills down his very essence, and a familiar terror coursed through him. Yog-Sothoth? It couldn't be the same being he knew from Lovecraft's myths. That cosmic horror, that entity beyond human comprehension. Though it seemed unlikely, the mere coincidence of the name made him shiver. You can't blame me for being terrified, can you? He thought. There was no way this kind, amicable being was the same as the monstrous cosmic horror he had read about in the myths. The entity laughed again, this time with a teasing yet non-malicious tone. I'm not the entity you're thinking of, haha. Humans have such boundless imaginations, and that's what makes them so delightful. Aiden exhaled, assuming he could do so in his current state. There was no way this entity was the same as the dreadful Yog-Sothoth from the myths. He relaxed a little, but remained determined to be extremely respectful. After all, the name alone was still intimidating, even if the two entities were unrelated. Very well, let's not waste time. I'll now explain the basics of that world and the enemies you'll face, said Yog-Sothoth, raising a hand. Immediately, hologram-like images began to appear around them, floating like spectral visions. This will make it easier to explain, they added with a mysterious smile. Aiden's eyes glowed with amazement at Yog-Sothoth's magic, but he quickly focused his attention on every word. When I finish the explanation, we'll sign the contract, and I'll grant you the powers to fulfill your part of the deal. And so, Yog-Sothoth began their tale, guiding Aiden through a vast fantasy world, each image revealing secrets and dangers that awaited him. Chapter 2, Prologue 2. In a certain dimension, asterisk. Let's begin with the enemies that will invade that world, and which you will have to face to protect it, said Yog-Sothoth, moving their hand slightly. Immediately, an image appeared in the hologram, a creature made of crystal, with a bright red core visible within its transparent body. These creatures are called phrases. They live in a parallel world and exist in different ranks. Low, mid, and high. More images unfolded before Aiden. The low-ranked phrases had the appearance of insects, such as beetles and other seemingly harmless creatures, but their appearance was unsettling. Through their crystalline bodies, the same red core throbbed within them. The low-ranked ones are, obviously, the weakest. They don't pose a significant threat, but they can still easily defeat humans without combat skills. Their bodies are extremely sturdy, and regular weapons cannot penetrate them. To defeat a phrase, you must destroy its core, which functions as its heart. As long as they have it, they can completely regenerate. Aiden's eyes widened. The idea of an enemy that could regenerate from nothing was terrifying, especially for a human armed only with iron weapons. If these creatures attacked a defenseless village, the people wouldn't stand a chance of survival. Aiden noticed that the world had a medieval aspect, with few options for defense beyond swords and armor. Although there were adventurers and mages, they represented only a small portion of the population. Yog-Sothoth continued, and a new image appeared before Aiden. This time, it was a larger creature, also made of crystal, but with more limbs and, notably, 2 glowing cores within its body. The creature measured around 4 meters in height and 2 in width, though this varied among mid-ranked phrases. Some resembled giant worms, while others looked like birds, each with its own terrifying forms. These are the mid-ranked phrases, explained Yog-Sothoth as the images displayed chilling details of each type. As you can see, they are much more durable, fast, and strong. Additionally, they possess 2 cores that act as hearts. They are a real threat to civilization. Facing one without a competent group of adventurers is suicide, and even with an experienced team, it's highly likely someone will die in combat. Aiden observed the sharp limbs of the creature and had no doubt about how lethal it could be. "Is the civilization in that world doing okay?" he asked, imagining a large invasion of these creatures fighting against the cities. The scene felt apocalyptic. The civilization is safe for now. These invaders have not yet reached that world. The images you see are from other worlds they've already destroyed, replied Yog-Sothoth, and with a wave of their hand, a new image appeared. Before them, an army of phrases invaded kingdoms and faced off against human soldiers, elves, and other races. The war was brutal. Spells lit up the air, flaming swords clashed against crystalline bodies, and massive earth golems rose to fight alongside the defenders. However, it was all for nothing. The image changed, revealing the outcome of the battle: devastated kingdoms and a field strewn with corpses. Aiden felt a shiver. His non-physical form bristled. The phrases were opening the corpses and tossing them aside after examining them. What are they doing?" he exclaimed, furious at seeing innocent people, even children, falling victim to those monstrosities. "Why are they opening their bodies and discarding them like nothing?" "I'll explain that now. Let me finish telling you about the ranks of the phrases. It's necessary for you to understand the purpose behind their actions," said Yog-Sothoth. Aiden nodded, and another image appeared before him. It was total catastrophe. If he'd had a body, he would have been drenched in cold sweat. "These are the high-ranked phrases," said Yog-Sothoth, and the image that appeared was shocking. Before Aiden stood a colossal creature, a monstrous amalgamation of various animals. But what truly chilled him was its size. This phrase was gigantic, as tall as a building, as wide as hundreds of meters, and stretching in length up to 500 meters. Inside its crystalline body, at least 5 cores glowed. The creature, with a form resembling a crocodile, opened its enormous mouth and began concentrating a blinding light within. Suddenly, a deafening roar filled the air, and a white beam was fired with unstoppable force. The ground beneath its path disappeared, pulverized, and when the beam struck its enemies, half of a kingdom vanished without a trace, as if it had never existed. Gulp! Aiden swallowed hard, terrified. The image of such devastation was something that even in his previous world, with its arsenal of weapons and nuclear bombs, didn't seem to stand a chance against. As he watched how these invaders could traverse dimensions and appear anywhere to unleash their destruction, he realized how desperate the situation truly was. Humans couldn't just launch nuclear bombs without severe consequences, and he couldn't imagine how anyone could defend against that beam of pure annihilation. "Not even in my previous world do I think they could defend against these invaders," Aiden thought. Yog-Sothoth-san, how am I supposed to protect that world from these invaders? If it were just one, maybe I'd have a chance. But I have to face millions, and for at least 100 years. Aiden couldn't contain his concern. "Haha, there's no need to worry," Yog-Sothoth replied with a calm smile. "I'll give you the power you need. You'll start off a bit weak, but over time, as you face more of these invaders, you'll grow stronger. I'll grant you abilities with great growth potential. Plus, you'll be quite versatile, so there's no need to worry. And you have a smart brain. I know you'll survive." Aiden nodded, feeling a bit more reassured. If he was going to be given the necessary power, then he was determined to accept the offer. It was either that or lose his second chance at life. Now, this is the highest rank of the phrases. Wait, there's an even higher rank? Aiden was stunned. Yes, if you've noticed, all the previous phrases were beings without intelligence, merely fulfilling a purpose. Who do you think gives them their orders? Yog-Sothoth waved his hand, and new images appeared before Aiden, who frowned as he looked at them. Humans? Crystal humans? Indeed, before him were humanoid crystal figures, and the next image showed one of them leading an army, giving orders to low, mid, and high-rank phrases. Yes, these are called humanoid phrases. They are intelligent beings and, most importantly, the true masterminds behind the invasions. Aiden clenched his fists upon hearing this, a fire of determination beginning to ignite within him. Asterisk. In a chapter. A/N. Here's chapter 2. Just letting you know, the plot about protecting the world and the phrases will only last for a few chapters. The final goal of this fanfic is to make it part of the DxD universe, along with other slice-of-life anime. For now, I'm just trying to give some background on how Aiden became strong. By the way, the phrases are from the series iSky, wa smartphone to Tomo and I. Also, I'd appreciate it if you could tell me if the grammar is okay, since English isn't my first language, and I'm translating the story using various applications like ChatGPT. Thanks. Chapter 3. Prologue 3. Asterisk. Humanoid phrases are the ones who lead the others, classified into ranks. Low, medium, and high. There is a reason why these invaders are attacking worlds, explained Yog-Sothoth, while waving his hand and projecting a disturbing image. In the image, a crystal humanoid led an army of millions, marching against a defenseless world. Through the image, legions of those crystal beings could be seen moving across a seemingly infinite space, a dimension reminiscent of a kaleidoscope extending endlessly. This was the dimensional rift, the barrier that separated the countless parallel worlds. Suddenly, the crystal humanoid stopped and raised its hands, making a grasping gesture that opened a breach in space, connecting it to another world. The low and medium-rank phrases began biting the opening, following the orders of the humanoid phrase, widening it so that the high-rank phrases could pass through. What followed was a spectacle of chaos and destruction. The low-ranked phrases lunged at the corpses, searching for something in their hearts, as if longing to find a treasure, despite being emotionless machines. The humanoid phrases didn't stop there. They ordered the others to conduct the same search. Finding nothing of value, they simply left, leaving behind a decimated civilization. Aiden watched the war with a single word echoing in his mind: terrifying. It was indeed terrifying. Are you wondering why these beings are invading civilizations? Asked Yog-Sothoth, noticing Aiden silently contemplating the images. Aiden nodded, confused. The actions of these invaders seemed to follow no logic. They sought neither resources nor territory, merely leaving desolate worlds in their wake. What one expects from an invader is a reason, a motive, hunger for power, need for resources. But from these images, it was clear that this was not what they were after. Were they simply evil? That was the question tormenting Aiden as he observed those crystal beings. The phrases invade worlds in search of their queen, who left them behind thousands of years ago. They are simply following the traces she leaves in her wake, explained Yog-Sothoth. Queen? It makes sense that they would have one, but what does that have to do with invading all these worlds and, worse, with what they do to the corpses, like opening them and searching their hearts? Aiden frowned, unable to get the image of those monsters killing innocent people out of his head. To understand why they do that, I need to tell you from the beginning. It's not such a long story, replied Yog-Sothoth, preparing to recount the tale. The queen of the phrases fell in love with a dimensional traveler who arrived in her world by pure chance. At first, they didn't get along, but blah, blah, blah. Over time, they fell in love. The queen grew so fond of him that she decided to escape with him. She thought her subjects would choose another king without issue, as she had been on the throne for thousands of years, and there were many candidates among the humanoid phrases. But she never imagined her race would go to such extremes to pursue her, continued Yog-Sothoth. Aiden frowned, thinking that the queen was either too irresponsible or perhaps naive to believe that her race, after being ruled for so long, wouldn't go to such extremes. But what does that have to do with invading worlds? If they didn't find their queen in the world they arrived in, would they simply destroy it out of rage? And why would they check the hearts of all the people they killed? Aiden asked, frustrated by the confusion. Well, that brings us to the true culprits of these invasions. Although the queen was irresponsible, she never used the phrases to invade other worlds. The culprits are the humanoid phrases who desired the queen's power to become the new king. They commanded the low dash, medium dash, and high-ranked phrases to search for their queen in different worlds, explained Yog-Sothoth. I see. Now I understand a little more. The humanoid phrases were just selfish bastards who wanted the queen's power for themselves from the start, said Aiden, his expression dark and angry. Every time he thought about the innocent people dying for such selfish reasons, something inside him broke, and rage drove him to want to destroy those monsters. But I still don't understand why the phrases do that with the corpses. I mean, why check their hearts? Aiden asked, unable to make sense of such strange behavior. Is it some kind of fetish for these monsters? He wondered. The reason they search within the humans and other living beings they kill is because the queen is inside one of them, explained Yog-Sothoth, as Aiden listened, completely stunned. Before leaving her home world, she had to transform her body into an orb to escape the sight of all races. Then she entered the dimensional rift and arrived in another world. That orb inserted itself into the heart of a human to recover strength, as transforming into that form to escape had left her quite weak. The queen could possess the human her orb entered, but she chose to regain her strength slowly without harming that person. Yog-Sothoth let out a sigh and looked at Aiden before continuing. The queen didn't want to kill the human or living being that hosted her. She simply waited in silence until that person's life ended naturally from old age. Then, unconsciously, after regaining some strength, she would travel to another world and enter another host to continue recovering and rebuild her body. Aiden also sighed. I see. The queen was too pure and innocent. That's why she chose to recover her strength without harming anyone. But what she didn't realize was that this action left traces her subjects would follow. Even though she didn't mean to cause harm, she did so unconsciously. Exactly, Yog-Sothoth nodded. The queen, in that state, is like she's asleep and only acts according to what she decided with her lover. He is also filled with guilt, as he cannot communicate with the queen while she sleeps. The only thing he can do is fight as many phrases as possible and save as many as he can from the invasions. Luckily, he's quite strong and has managed to save many people by warning them beforehand and helping them. That world you're going to protect as part of the deal has already been destroyed once. However, with the help of the queen's lover, who fought against the phrases long ago, some kingdoms managed to survive and rebuild their civilization. Although it's quite underdeveloped now, the phrases will return since the queen is regaining her strength in that world once again, explained Yog-Sothoth. I understand the story of these beings a bit better now. The queen and her lover only wanted to have an adventure together, but because of the humanoid phrases who desired the queen's power for themselves, these tragedies happen, said Aiden, clenching his fists as he looked at Yog-Sothoth with determination in his eyes. I'll do my best to protect that world with everything I've got. At least for these 100 years, I'll break my bones, sweat blood if necessary, but I'll fulfill my part of the deal. You won't regret choosing me. Yog-Sothoth nodded with satisfaction and smiled. If you've already made your decision, then let's make the contract. Aiden nodded and waited for the cosmic entity's actions, ready to accept his destiny. A/N. Here's the third chapter of the day. This storyline of Aiden versus the phrases takes place 100 years before the start of the light novel and anime Isekai wa Smartphone de Tomo ni. It's an Isekai anime full of cliches where the protagonist, Mochizuki Tuya, dies from a lightning strike sent by God, and then that same God grants him powers and reincarnates him in a fantasy world with a super powerful smartphone. Have you ever seen it? This arc will be short, where Aiden becomes powerful. I'll try to move through it quickly, but I want to explain how Aiden attained his strength so that when he travels to another world, you can understand his abilities more or less. By the way, I'll upload Chapter 4 in a few minutes. I'll give the protagonist a magic based on a light novel from one of my favorite anime series. Guess if you want. Chapter 4 Prologue 4. In a certain dimension, *. Then, let's not waste any time. Let's make the contract. In Yog-Sothoth's right hand appeared a sheet of paper, and in his left, a magical quill materialized, which he began to use. His movements were precise and swift, and in a matter of seconds, he was done. After a few moments, he handed the paper to Aiden so he could read it. Contract. Aiden Avalon agrees to protect the aforementioned world for a period of 100 years starting from the signing of this contract. Aiden Avalon must make every possible effort to safeguard civilization from the phrases during the agreed period, using the resources and abilities at his disposal to fulfill this obligation. Yog-Sothoth agrees to grant Aiden Avalon the necessary power to fulfill his part of the contract. Yog-Sothoth will allow Aiden Avalon to retain the entirety of the power acquired during these 100 years once the contract is completed, so that he may live his second life according to his will and without restrictions. Yog-Sothoth will not interfere, directly or indirectly, in Aiden Avalon's life once he has fulfilled the contract's conditions. Aiden found no issues with the contract and accepted without hesitation, so Yog-Sothoth handed him a quill, which he used to sign. As soon as he finished, the contract disappeared in the cosmic being's hands, who looked at Aiden with an enigmatic smile. Now, I will fulfill my part of the deal and grant you powers and abilities with which you will be able to defeat the invaders, Yog-Sothoth said, snapping his fingers. Aiden's back began to glow, and his ethereal body was flooded with golden light. Moments later, a set of mystical characters appeared on his back, surrounding a symbol resembling the Tree of Life. Despite not having a physical body in that space, Aiden felt a sharp burning sensation in his back, as if something were being etched deep into his soul. The first ability I grant you is called Fauna, announced Yog-Sothoth, waving his hand to show Aiden an image of his back, where the symbols were clearly visible. Aiden observed the image, noting the runes and the mysterious arboreal symbol. Fauna? Is it some kind of magic related to trees or life? He asked, thinking that was the logical connection upon seeing the tree depicted. But Yog-Sothoth laughed, shaking his head. Oh no, the Fauna comes from a parallel world where gods, bored, decided to descend to the mortal realm. There, these gods grant the Fauna to their children so they can grow stronger, explained Yog-Sothoth, capturing Aiden's curious attention. So, the Fauna gives me superhuman strength? Aiden asked, intrigued. Correct. You can gain superhuman physical abilities by collecting Excelia, which you earn by defeating monsters, strong beings, or through training. When you gather enough Excelia, you level up and can acquire increasingly powerful skills. Aiden's eyes widened in amazement. It's like an RPG, he murmured, recalling games from his past life. Yes, you could say it's similar. And it seems you're lucky because you've awakened a rather interesting magic, Yog-Sothoth continued, sparking excitement in Aiden's eyes. Really? What kind of magic? Can I shoot lightning? Or a Kamehameha? Or maybe summon hundreds of swords? He asked enthusiastically. Yog-Sothoth chuckled ironically, enjoying his reaction. Calm down, calm down. I'll tell you about your magics once I finish giving you the 3 gifts. At the end, you'll be able to review your status using the power of the Fauna. Yes. Aiden immediately shut his mouth, letting Yog-Sothoth continue. His face felt slightly flushed with excitement, like a small child. Despite trying to control himself, he couldn't help it. But he still felt a bit embarrassed. I've already given you an ability that will allow you to grow stronger quickly, while you'll be able to become more powerful without relying on the Fauna. This will make gaining power faster. Now, for a storage ability. Yog-Sothoth fell into thought for a few moments, until suddenly an idea lit up his expression, bringing forth a smile. This ability will do, he said, snapping his fingers. Aiden felt a burning sensation in his back and looked at the image projected by Yog-Sothoth, where runes seemed to form out of nowhere. He imagined this must be the new ability Yog-Sothoth had just granted him. Second ability delivered. Only the last one remains. I suppose you'll want to travel to other worlds when you've completed your part of the deal, right? Aiden reflected for a few seconds before nodding. Yes, if possible. I'm not thrilled with the idea of staying in a medieval world. No internet, not even comfortable bathrooms. I see. then an ability to travel to other parallel worlds. You already have the necessary offensive power with the magic you've awakened, along with the storage capacity, and now you'll be able to cross between worlds, commented Yog-Sothoth, snapping his fingers once more as more runes appeared on Aiden's back. You now have the abilities I promised in the contract. To see them, simply think of the word status, and the information will appear in your mind. Aiden nodded and complied. Status, he thought, and moments later, the information emerged in his mind. Name, Aiden Avalon. Race, human / Level, 1. Basic skills. Strength, I0. Endurance, I0. Dexterity, I0. Agility, I0. Magic, I0. Ryryoko, I0. Development ability. Magic, 1. Tree of Life / Death Sephiroth / Cliffa. This magic is structured into 10 powers inspired by the Sephiroth, spheres of light and creation, and their counterparts, the Cliffith, shadows and destruction. Each ability in this magic represents one of the Sephiroth, but extreme or uncontrolled usage triggers the opposing energy in the corresponding Cliffa, exposing the user to the dark forces of the tree. Spirit Armor of Divine Authority. Astral Armor. Divine Authority number 6. Lord who removes the seals. Angel, Michael. Demon King. Belphegor sealed. Weapon key. Release form. Spear / staff. Ego. Divine Authority number 1. Divine Authority number 2. Divine Authority number 3. Divine Authority number 4. Divine Authority number 5. Divine Authority number 7. Divine Authority number 9. Divine Authority number 10. 2. Gate of Babylon. The Gate of Babylon is an ability that allows access to a vast treasury known as the King's Vault. This treasury can store countless weapons, objects, and mythical artifacts. When activated, the ability manifests golden portals in the air, evoking the aesthetics of Babylon, from which weapons are extracted and launched with great speed and precision, like deadly projectiles. The ability is versatile, overwhelming opponents with a barrage of attacks from an inexhaustible collection of treasures. 3. Kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope enables movement between parallel universes. Skills. IU Hero. This unique skill allows the user to accelerate personal growth impressively while protecting everything around them, from people and towns to cities, kingdoms, and even entire worlds. Additionally, it can break the limits of basic stats, leading the user to an unprecedented level of evolution. Inverse Spirit. Sealed, this is a dark ability that grants the user access to an inverted version of themselves, renouncing part of their feelings and humanity in exchange for formidable power. When activated, the Demon Kings are unsealed, while the angels become inverted in their essence. Aiden remained silent for a few seconds, processing all the information he had just received. After analyzing it, he came to a conclusion. His abilities were impressive, with potential that made him, at the very least, one of the most powerful mortals. Among the details he now understood was the functionality of his fauna, a skill that, in his case, was a gift from Yog-Sothoth. Under normal conditions, fauna depended on the gods, who could grant and revoke their blessing at will. However, for Aiden, the fauna was entirely his. If he wanted to level up, he could do so through simple mental commands. As for his 3 magics, the Tree of Life / Death Sephiroth / Cliffa had immense potential. He had already awakened 1 Divine Authority, number 6 out of a total of 10. This magic contains something called Angel and Demon King, functioning as a type of armament with specific abilities. Michael and Belphegor were the Angel and Demon King of Divine Authority number 6, which, though simple, was extremely powerful. It summoned a key with the power to seal and unlock things at a conceptual level. Aiden, who in his past life had read plenty of novels, already had many ideas on how to use this ability, and the possibilities were so vast that he couldn't help but feel excited. An example of what he could do, absurd as it might seem, would be sealing the rotation of a planet, causing a tremendous level of chaos. He could also unlock space-time to travel through the cosmos via dimensional rifts. Additionally, there were other uses. He could seal abstract things like memories, emotions, sensations, and much more. Observing him, Yog-Sothoth decided to read his mind, and upon doing so, sighed in relief. He no longer had to worry about that world. It seemed Aiden would fulfill his part of the deal perfectly. Although Yog-Sothoth was powerful, as much as an outer god, he couldn't help but be surprised by the magic Aiden had awakened by himself. In his opinion, the Tree of Life/Death, Sephiroth/Cliffa, had the potential to turn a mortal into someone truly formidable. With all his power, Aiden could potentially exterminate millions of phrases. Yog-Sothoth-san, may I ask you a question that's been bothering me? Aiden asked after a moment of silence. Ask whatever you like. Let me guess. It's about the egos of your divine authorities, isn't it? Yog-Sothoth replied, amused. Yes. What do you mean by that? Will they have personalities or something? Aiden wasn't surprised that Yog-Sothoth guessed his question, since he had long deduced that this cosmic being could read minds. Exactly. Your divine authorities will develop egos the more you use them. Eventually, they'll take on human forms and assist you in combat. That magic you've awakened is truly powerful, Yog-Sothoth explained. Aiden was surprised and thrilled, relieved that he wouldn't have to face those crystal monsters alone for 100 years. However, the cosmic being's next words nearly made him choke. Who knows? Maybe later, you'll marry your divine authorities, Yog-Sothoth joked. Are you mocking me? Aiden asked, feeling somewhat helpless against the being's cheerful attitude, so different from the Yog-Sothoth of myth. I'm not mocking you, you know. It's very likely to happen. Perhaps you'll have 10 wives in the future. Anything can happen in 100 years, especially when you'll be fighting together against millions of enemies. I'm sure you understand what I mean. You've read enough stories in your past life to get it. Aiden blushed slightly, but wouldn't complain if he could have 10 wives in the future. After all, what man wouldn't like a harem? Aiden always remembered a phrase from his grandfather, who had long since passed away. If you're a man, you can't help but want a harem. Of course, his grandmother, who had also passed, used to beat up his grandfather every time he uttered that pearl of wisdom, and then she'd say to Aiden, "Don't follow this bastard's words, okay?" Aiden chuckled at the memory of his grandparents' quarrels, but he soon turned to Yog-Sothoth and changed the topic to a question that piqued his curiosity. Ahem, if I may ask, since I'll be protecting that world for 100 years, what will happen to that world after I fulfill my part of the deal and leave? Won't civilization be destroyed? The idea of leaving those people defenseless unsettled him. After protecting a world for so long, he'd surely grow attached and wouldn't want it destroyed. You don't need to worry about that. In 100 years, the next protector of that world will appear. He'll defend it when you leave, though you can help him if you like, Yog-Sothoth replied. A protector? Someone will be born with great power in that world. Aiden asked. No. In 100 years, a young man from a parallel world similar to yours will die due to a lightning bolt mistakenly thrown by a god. That god will apologize and reincarnate him with great power into that world. Yog-Sothoth explained what he had seen in the future, and Aiden couldn't help but twist his lips. Isn't that the typical plot of an iSky novel? Ah, well, yes, but that boy is a good person. You have nothing to worry about. As long as he's there, he'll protect that world. The lover of the Queen of the Phrases will also help defend it, so you can leave in peace when you fulfill your part of the deal, Yog-Sothoth replied. Aiden felt relieved upon hearing this and relaxed a little more, confident that his sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. After clearing up all his doubts, Aiden continued chatting with Yog-Sothoth, who finally nodded with satisfaction. Then, I'll count on you, Aiden, said Yog-Sothoth, raising his hand. Immediately, a vortex began to form beneath Aiden. He knew it was time to say goodbye, so he responded with a smile and a peace sign, raising his fingers in a V. I'll protect that world, don't worry. Yog-Sothoth let out a soft laugh. Haha, I hope this second life is full of happiness for you. With those words, the vortex absorbed Aiden's soul, taking him to a new world. In a dense forest, a young man of about 15 years opened his eyes. He observed his surroundings and let out a slight laugh. His new life had just begun. End of the chapter. A/N. I'll clarify a couple of things. The protagonist doesn't know the plot of any of the animes that appear in this fanfic, okay? He reincarnated, he didn't possess any character or anything like that. By the way, the protagonist's first magic is based on the angels and demon kings from Date A Live. The second is Gilgamesh's Gate of Babylon. And yes, I know I gave the protagonist a magic called Kaleidoscope, and yes, I stole the name from the second true magic from the Fate series. But, let me be clear, it's not the same, okay? This version of Kaleidoscope only allows the protagonist to travel between worlds. He can't use it like Zelrich to explore different timelines or attack with multiversal energy. Chapter 5, Grey Wolves and Civilization. Alicia World. Belfast Kingdom, Eastern Forest. Asterisk. Seriously, I arrive in this world, and some weird monster attacks me already. For some reason, I don't feel scared, though I'm a little nervous, Aiden murmured to himself as he observed the two wolves he had encountered in the forest. He had been exploring and walking all day, but by nightfall, he had found no food. He needed to start a campfire and look for something to eat afterward. With Michael, hunting an animal for food shouldn't be a problem. But who would have thought he'd run into these rabid wolves? Grr. The wolves, with ominous gray fur, had blood-red eyes that glowed brightly in the dark. Upon seeing those eyes, Aiden instantly knew they weren't ordinary creatures. I wonder if they're edible? He wondered, feeling the pressure of hunger. He had already explored quite a bit and had gotten far from his temporary camp. He didn't want to find another spot and have to light another fire, especially after how difficult it had been to make the first one. Grr! Suddenly, one of the wolves let out a guttural growl and charged at him, snapping him out of his thoughts. Tap! Boom! In an instant, the wolf reached his side, opening its mouth full of sharp teeth and saliva, its red eyes glowing with ferocity. Without wasting time, it tried to devour its prey. Whoa! Aiden panicked, dodging the wolf's bite and rolling to the side. The wolf crashed violently into a tree. Thud! Disoriented, the wolf let out a pained whine as Aiden got back up, feeling pure adrenaline rush through his body. Seems like you really can't wait to be roasted and eaten, huh? Aiden mocked, determined not to let the opportunity slip by. Without wasting more time, he lunged forward. The fauna had granted him superior physical abilities compared to a normal human, and with an agile movement, he reached the side of the wolf. With a branch he had been keeping in his pocket, Aiden thrust it forcefully into the wolf's red eye. SHHHK. The wolf howled in pain, its eyes reflecting surprise and fury. This one's for dinner, Aiden murmured with determination, as the other wolf prepared to attack. Aiden gripped the blood-covered branch tightly and looked at the wolf that stared at him with a fierce gaze. Ugh, this is disgusting, but I'll have to get used to this. They're just two wolves, the first enemy you encounter in the tutorial. You got this, Aiden? He encouraged himself as he muttered, but when he looked at the blood again, he couldn't help but think it was disgusting once more. The wolves, now alert, began to circle him, growling as they lunged at him simultaneously. Brewer! One aimed for his arms, while the other went for his neck. All right, I can't win against you with this little twig. Aiden dropped the nonsense. He wanted to learn hand-to-hand combat, but now he realized that wasn't the priority. If he made a mistake, these wolves would devour him alive. And if he died because of these weak wolves, how could he face all those phrases? First of all, Aiden wasn't a hand-to-hand fighter. Michael! Aiden's right hand glowed with a golden light as a giant key resembling a staff of rings appeared in his palm. With an agile movement, he spun the key and used it as a spear, preparing to strike the wolves. Thud! 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 The wolves howled in pain, their screams echoing through the forest as Aiden used a trap skill against tutorial monsters like them. They could only suffer in silence until they died, their bodies falling heavily to the ground. Thud! Thud! Aiden watched as the wolves lay motionless, a mix of relief and adrenaline coursing through his body. Aiden looked at the bodies of the two wolves, their heads crushed and covered in blood. He felt a pang of nausea but managed to hold it in. A sigh escaped his lips. Maybe I can use this to eat or sell when I reach a village. What part of the world am I in now? Turning around, golden portals began appearing under the wolves' bodies, absorbing them. It was the gate of Babylon. Aiden smiled to himself. Having almost infinite storage was incredibly convenient. According to the information he'd read in the fauna, that magic could also be used offensively. He imagined launching a bunch of swords from there. That would be pretty cool. He continued on his way to the camp, which was quite far away. Along the way, he encountered more wolves, which fell in a single headshot, thanks to Michael, who could also fire energy blasts made of Ryuryoku. Aiden practiced with those wolves, feeling his skill improve with each victory. After dealing with all the wolves, he collected them using the Gate of Babylon and continued his journey toward the camp. Upon arrival, he set out to cook the wolf meat using a sharp stone he had found during his return. When he tried the meat, a single thought crossed his mind. Disgusting. Despite his dislike, he kept eating, knowing he needed strength. He wasn't concerned about the meat being poisonous. According to Yog-Sothoth, Aiden's body had changed and strengthened upon awakening his magic, Tree of Life/Death, Saphira/Cliffa, increasing his resistance to such things. Though he wasn't completely immune, he was confident in his newfound strength. After eating, he climbed a tree to try and sleep. However, the discomfort woke him up several times during the night. When will I reach a village? He murmured softly. 2 days later, Aiden walked along a dirt road showing marks of wheels. He assumed those tracks were from horse-drawn carts. He decided to follow this path, hoping it would lead him to a village or civilization. But seriously, why are there so many gray wolves? Aren't there other kinds of monsters? I feel a bit bad using Michael to hit these enemies. It's supposed to be some divine power or something. Aiden muttered to himself while cleaning the blood off the tip of the key. At that moment, he felt the key respond, as if it agreed with him. Well, I'll try not to use you as a stick to slap these monsters, he said, and the key glowed, as if approving his decision. Aiden gathered the wolf bodies and continued on his way. 5 full days passed before he finally glimpsed a village in the distance. Finally, I want to sleep in a bed and eat something that isn't roasted wolf, he exclaimed happily. Without wasting any time, Aiden headed toward the village while humming a song from his past life. If the sign of our goodbye echoes in the night sky, soon we'll be far away and weak, and our paths will light up until we meet again. While humming, almost without realizing it, Aiden caught a glimpse of his status, remembering the wolf packs he had defeated along the way. Name: Aiden Avalon. Race: human / Level: 1. Basic skills: Strength: I0D 586. Endurance: I0D 544. Dexterity: I0G 202. Agility: I0G 278. Magic: I0D 533. Ryuryoku: I0B 702. Development capacity: Magic: 1 Tree of Life/Death, Saphira/Cliffa. Armor of the Divine Authority Spirit. Astral Armor. Divine Authority number 6. Lord who removes the seals. Angel: Michael. Demon King: Belphegor sealed. Weapon key: Release form: Spear/Staff. Ego. Divine Authority number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 2. Gate of Babylon. 3. Kaleidoscope. Skills: IU Hero. It is a unique skill that allows the user to accelerate their personal growth impressively while protecting everything around them, from people and towns to cities, kingdoms, and even entire worlds. Additionally, it has the power to break the limits of basic statistics, bringing the user to an unprecedented level of evolution. Reverse Spirit. Sealed, it is a dark skill that grants the user access to an inverted version of themselves, giving up part of their feelings and humanity in exchange for formidable power. When activated, Demon Kings are no longer sealed, while angels are inverted in their essence. As expected, the stat that has risen the most is Ryuryoku, since it is the energy used by Michael. The other stats have also risen quite a bit, Aiden thought, feeling pleased. He realized that he felt stronger than the first day he arrived in this world. If those 2 wolves he killed appeared again, he could slap them without needing to rely on Michael. I won't need to use a cheat power on those little bastards anymore, he said with an ironic smile. A few moments later, he arrived at the village entrance, where there was a kind of gate guarded by a few soldiers. Ah, finally some civilization, Aiden exclaimed, feeling a surge of joy at seeing signs of human life. Asterisk, end of chapter. A/N. In the upcoming chapters, there will be several time skips to show Aiden's progress. I plan to make this mini-arc a maximum of 10 chapters, so it's likely that by chapter 16, Aiden will already be in another world. This mini-arc is simply to show where his powers come from and how he meets the first members of his harem. I think the cover of the fanfic already gives a little spoiler, and Yog-Sothoth also mentioned something about the egos. Anyway, thanks for reading, and I'd appreciate it if you could let me know if the grammar is correct, since, as I mentioned, my native language isn't English and I'm translating this with ChatGPT. Chapter 6, Adventurer and Poison Lizards. World of Alicia. Kingdom of Belfast. In X Village. Adventurers Guild. Asterisk. It's a relief that Yog-Sothoth gave me dominion over this world's language. Otherwise, I'd be pretty screwed, not knowing how to read or speak, Aiden murmured as he examined the requests on the bulletin board. At that moment, he was in the Adventurers Guild of a small village in the Kingdom of Belfast, located on the Western European continent of this world. Aiden took a request for exterminating magical beasts and headed toward the receptionist. After officially accepting the request, he left the guild building and began walking through the streets. The buildings, with their ancient and medieval design, stood tall on either side as Aiden strolled, lost in thought. Exterminate a pack of venomous lizards. They need their materials to craft armor and weapons, he murmured under his breath. It had been a month since his arrival in this fantasy world, and the first thing he did was look for work as an adventurer, as it was the most convenient option. He could earn money by completing requests and fighting magical beasts to obtain Excelia and level up. 2 birds with 1 stone. He needed to build his life in this world since, although he planned to leave once he fulfilled his deal with Yog-Sothoth, he knew he'd have to stay here for 100 years. He had no intention of living like a vagabond. If he could earn money and live well, all the better. Though his main goal in becoming an adventurer was to fight magical beasts and level up, he had already made significant progress in just a month. He had also taken advantage of his new ability, which accelerated his growth while protecting something. And thanks to this, he had gained some fame as a hero among people who had faced trouble with magical beasts. Let's finish this request, and with the money I collect, I'll commission several weapons. Swords, spears, whatever, Aiden murmured as he headed toward the western forest, where the venomous lizards resided. The purpose of acquiring so many weapons was to enhance his magic, Gate of Babylon, which became devastating with an abundant arsenal in its treasury. When invoked, golden portals would open, firing the weapons at high speed and sweeping away any threats in their path. The ability was perfect for facing large numbers of monsters, in addition to allowing him to improve his dexterity stats while practicing his magic control and magic when activating it. Step, step, step. Here I am, Aiden murmured as he looked at the forest entrance. He stepped forward cautiously, eyes scanning the surroundings, ready for any surprises. His golden eyes scrutinized the area, but all he found was the whisper of the trees, birds perched on the branches, and the occasional frog hopping in the shadows of the foliage. As he ventured deeper into the forest, his senses caught a disturbance. The snapping of branches confirmed that something was approaching. Snap, snap, snap. They finally showed up, Aiden murmured, his sharp gaze locking onto the intruder. His senses, enhanced by the fauna, warned him of the presence. A venomous lizard nearly 3 meters long, watching him intently while licking its lips, patiently stalking before attacking. Aiden exhaled disdainfully, his gaze fixed on the dense forest. Umph. He crouched, picked up a stone, and threw it with calculated force. Whoosh thunk! The stone cut through the air, striking the lizard hidden in the underbrush. With a deep, furious growl, the beast emerged, its vibrant scales shimmering under the light. "So, you finally showed yourself. I thought I'd have to walk further in," Aiden murmured with a half-smile. "What do you say? If you have more friends, call them. The more challenging this adventure, the more excelia I can gain." With an agile motion, a golden portal appeared in his right hand, and from it emerged the hilt of a short iron sword. He drew it with a flash of steel, preparing in a firm stance. Grayard! The venomous lizard wasted no time, launching itself at Aiden with its jaws wide open, its sharp fangs glinting menacingly. Tap, tap, tap. Aiden advanced with nimble steps, the echo of his footsteps resonating in the forest. In a swift move, he slid beneath the beast's jaw, dodging its fangs, and with a precise slash, tore through the flesh and bone of its mouth. Swish! Slash! The sword carved a precise line, and blood spurted in a gush, staining the ground dark red. The lizard let out a sharp, pained screech that echoed among the trees. "I warned you," Aiden said with a defiant smile, showing no trace of fear. "You can bring all your friends. Alone, you're no match for me." His golden gaze scanned the forest, searching for movement among the shadows, but the response was an empty silence. The wounded lizard growled again, opening its jaws as a thick purple liquid bubbled in its mouth. "Poison?" Aiden arched an eyebrow, observing the viscous drool. "Ah, that's why they call you the venomous lizard." Quick as lightning, he moved among the trees surrounding the lizard, its venom sizzling as it spilled onto the ground. Schlup splish! The creature spat its venom in all directions. The acid melted the wood, leaving steaming holes, but Aiden skillfully slid behind a trunk, shielding himself from the corrosive substance. CRRSSHH. The forest was filled with the sound of trees dissolving, but Aiden was already prepared for a counterattack. With a precise leap, he positioned himself in the blind spot of the lizard and, with a series of quick and lethal slashes, attacked the creature's least protected areas. Slash crunch! The sword cut through scales, flesh, and bone, and the lizard shrieked as it lost a limb. Aiden didn't stop. He jumped into the air and spun, his sword glowing as it concentrated his Ryuryaku. Swoosh! The blade sliced through the air in a flash. A thin line appeared on the lizard's neck, and before the beast could react, its head detached from its body, falling heavily to the ground. Aiden lowered his sword, shaking the blade to clean the blood before it hit the ground. Then, the sound of multiple footsteps echoed through the forest. Crack, crack! His eyes glimmered with excitement as he saw the horde of lizards approaching, their hungry gazes fixed on him. "They're late," he murmured, smiling in defiance. Several golden gates appeared behind him, and a rain of swords and spears shot forth, striking the enemy lizards with overwhelming force. Creak! Shrill and furious cries filled the air, but Aiden moved with lethal precision, facing the lizards one by one. With every slash, every leap, and every strike, he maintained the intensity, letting the risk and difficulty of the battle heighten his excitement. "I could summon Michael and end this quickly," he thought as he pierced another lizard's skull. "But where's the fun in that? The harder it is, the better the reward." As if it were a personal challenge, Aiden pressed forward into the horde, each movement calculated, each blow precise. Despite the fatigue beginning to show, he displayed no signs of giving in. Finally, after an exhausting series of attacks, he stopped, panting and with a faint smile on his lips. Phew, that was intense. Aiden dropped to the ground, leaning against a tree after storing all the swords, spears, and lizard corpses in the king's treasury. He closed his eyes and began to rest for a while. Although his body was at rest, his senses remained alert, always ready for anything. After a few moments, he stood up, stretching the muscles that had been tense during the battle. "That was a pretty exciting fight. After a month of hunting magical beasts, I've gotten somewhat used to battles. Though I can still improve," Aiden reflected, scratching his white hair, which fell messily over his forehead. "Also, now that I remember, I need to look for information about this world's magic. Let's see if I can learn it. The stronger I get, the more worthwhile it will be. He looked at the palm of his right hand and murmured, Michael. Suddenly, a giant key appeared in his hands. He pointed it in a specific direction, as if unlocking an invisible lock. Latide. At that moment, the space opened, revealing a dimensional rift resembling a purple wormhole, flickering with mystical energy. This power is so convenient. I love you, my divine authority. With determination, Aiden stepped through the portal and emerged outside the village where he had been living for the past month. Well, let's deliver the materials and complete the guild request. As he headed to the guild to claim his reward, he glanced at his status. Name: Aiden Avalon. Race: human / Level: 1. Basic abilities: Strength: D 586, SSS 1345. Endurance: D 544, SSS 1244. Dexterity: G 202, SSS 1764. Agility: G 278, SS 1178. Magic: E 533, SSS 2044. Ryuryoku: B 702, SSS 2488. Development ability: Magic: 1. Tree of Life / Death Sapphira / Cliffa. Divine Authority Spirit Armor. Astral Armor. Divine Authority number 6. Lord who removes seals. Angel: Michael. Demon King: Belphegor sealed. Weapon key: Release form. Spear / staff, Ego. Divine Authority number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 2. Gate of Babylon. 3. Kaleidoscope. Skills: IU Hero. A unique skill that allows the user to accelerate personal growth impressively while protecting everything around them, from people and villages to cities, kingdoms, and even entire worlds. It also has the power to break the limits of basic stats, pushing the user to an unprecedented level of evolution. Inverse Spirit. Sealed, a dark skill that grants the user the ability to access an inverted version of themselves, forsaking part of their emotions and humanity in exchange for formidable power. Upon activation, the Demon Kings are unsealed, while the Angels are inverted in essence. Asterisk: I suppose it's good progress for a whole month? Not sure if it's exceptional since I have no one to compare it to. Aiden murmured as he reflected on his performance. Yog-Sothoth had mentioned that the power of Fauna came from a parallel universe, which made him wonder if the people using this power system experienced similar progress. Well, I won't level up until I max out all the basic stats. That was one of Yog-Sothoth's tips before sending me here, he thought to himself. After arriving at the guild and completing the request by handing over the poisonous lizard corpses, Aiden claimed his reward in the form of shining coins. Satisfied with a job well done, he headed to the inn where he was staying. Asterisk: A/N. All that progress in his status represents the excelia he's gathered throughout the month. Okay? The first harem member will probably appear in the next chapter. If you've watched the anime or read the Date, a live novel, I think it's pretty obvious who it will be. Thanks for reading.